On the horizon, a relentless force was inexorably advancing, casting a long shadow over the land. The Babylonian Empire, the most formidable and feared power of its time, a behemoth of military might and architectural grandeur, was on the march, its intentions clear, to demand absolute submission from all who stood in its path. Their reputation preceded them, a chilling testament to their ruthlessness and unwavering ambition. The once impregnable walls of Jerusalem, symbols of faith and defiance, succumbed to the empire's might, breached and broken under the relentless siege. The proud gates, once bustling with commerce and the laughter of families, were reduced to splintered wreckage. The sacred temple, the heart of the city and a beacon of hope for generations, was desecrated, its sanctity violated by foreign hands. Princes, noble in bearing and accustomed to lives of privilege, were shackled in chains, their dignity stripped away as they were dragged to distant lands, far from the familiar embrace of their homeland, their families, and everything they held dear. Among these captives, amidst the despair and humiliation, walked a young man named Daniel. He carried no army, commanded no throne, and possessed no worldly power. Little did he know that his name, etched in faith and resilience, would echo across the centuries, inspiring generations to come. The sky over Jerusalem hung heavy, thick with the acrid smell of smoke and the dust of destruction. Columns, once majestic and proud, lay in shattered ruins, monuments to a fallen city. The distant clang of metal against stone reverberated through the devastated streets, a constant reminder of the brutal occupation. Gates had been smashed open, walls torn asunder, and the surviving people shuffled through the rubble in stunned silence, their faces etched with grief and disbelief, surrounded by the watchful eyes of foreign soldiers, their presence a constant, oppressive weight. The temple, which had once stood as a symbol of the presence of the Most High, a place of sanctuary and unwavering faith, was now being systematically looted. Sacred objects, painstakingly crafted and imbued with centuries of devotion, were carelessly carted away like mere trophies of war, their spiritual significance disregarded. The name of God, once a source of strength and comfort, seemed to fade into the background amidst the cries of the defeated and the triumphant shouts of the conquerors. Among the young captives, however, there existed a different kind of silence, a quiet resolve that defied the surrounding despair. Daniel walked with a firm gaze, his eyes fixed on some unseen point in the distance, even with his hands bound tightly behind his back. His posture spoke of inner strength, an unyielding spirit that refused to be broken. Beside him, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his close companions and brothers in faith, struggled to comprehend the magnitude of the catastrophe unfolding before their very eyes. The world they knew, the world they cherished, had been irrevocably shattered. It wasn't merely the loss of their land, the physical boundaries of their nation, but the shattering feeling that the entire known world had collapsed, leaving them adrift in a sea of uncertainty and fear. Still, something remained intact within them, a flicker of hope, a burning ember of faith that refused to be extinguished. Did you abandon us? No. If we are still breathing, He is still in charge. The arduous march continued for days, stretching into weeks, across scorching deserts and through strange, unfamiliar cities, each step a painful reminder of their captivity. Finally, in the distance, the imposing gates of the Great Babylon began to rise before them, a testament to human ambition and architectural prowess. Huge towers, monuments to earthly power, loomed over them, and wide, impenetrable walls stretched as far as the eye could see. Grotesque gods, carved in stone and adorned with gold, watched over the city, their silent gazes promising power and dominance, but also hinting at the empire's inherent arrogance. Human power there did not hide itself, nor did it apologize for its existence. It reveled in its own magnificence, displaying its strength and opulence for all to see. The young people were herded into the palace, an extravagant display of wealth and power, where cold-eyed officials meticulously evaluated their faces, bodies, and minds, as if choosing instruments for some grand imperial orchestra. Aspenaz, the chief of the officers, a man hardened by years of service to the crown, surveyed the captives with a critical eye. "These will serve," he declared, his voice devoid of emotion. "They are strong, intelligent, and possess the potential to become valuable assets to the empire. The king wants them to learn our language, to master our customs, and to become like us, true Babylonians." New names were bestowed upon them, like branding marks, and a new identity was forcibly imposed, an attempt to erase their heritage and to sever their ties to their past. Everything that came from Judah was to be systematically erased, replaced by the culture and traditions of Babylon. Daniel heard his new name, a hollow sound that echoed in the vast halls of the palace, but something deep inside him remained unchanged, untouched by the empire's attempts at assimilation. His faith, his principles, and his unwavering commitment to his God were immutable. That same night, trays laden with the king's food were placed before them, an enticing offering of luxury and indulgence. Meats sacrificed to idols, defiled by pagan rituals, and wine consecrated to false gods, filled their plates. The opulence of the feast carried a subtle, yet pervasive contamination, a spiritual compromise that Daniel and his friends could not accept. Daniel looked at his friends, his gaze firm and resolute, and spoke in a low, determined voice, barely above a whisper. "I can't accept this. If we refuse, we will die. If we accept it, we will die inside." Driven by their unwavering faith and their commitment to their principles, they requested a meeting with the officer in charge, a daring act of defiance in the face of absolute authority. The officer, burdened by his own responsibilities and wary of the king's wrath, watched them impatiently, his expression a mixture of annoyance and curiosity. "Are you trying to challenge the king's order? We are not asking for privilege, merely that we be allowed to not infect ourselves with what is unclean. Try it. 10 days. Give us vegetables and water, then judge for yourself." The officer hesitated, his mind weighing the potential consequences. The risk was considerable. A direct challenge to the king's authority could carry dire repercussions. Yet, something about the determination in that young man's eyes, the unwavering conviction in his voice, made him agree. Perhaps, he reasoned, this small concession would prevent further trouble. The days passed with agonizing slowness. While others indulged in the excesses of the palace, reveling in the endless supply of food and drink, Daniel and his friends remained steadfast in their commitment to their faith. They were simple, silent, and faithful, finding strength in their shared beliefs. On the 10th day, the officer returned, his expression skeptical. He scrutinized their faces, searching for signs of weakness or malnutrition. Instead, he found their faces stronger, their eyes more alive, and their postures firmer than the others who had indulged in the royal fare. "How is this possible?" murmured the officer, astonished by the transformation he witnessed. He could not comprehend how such a simple diet could produce such remarkable results. It wasn't possible for human eyes to fully grasp, for it wasn't man who ruled that story, but a higher power working behind the scenes. Time moved forward, relentlessly marching on, as it always does. Babylon continued its routine of power and splendor, its dominance unchallenged. Daniel grew in wisdom, discernment, and grace before everyone, earning the respect of his peers and even some of his superiors. His integrity and intelligence were undeniable, setting him apart from the others. Something invisible accompanied him, a divine presence that guided his steps and protected him from harm. While the palace corridors echoed with conversations about gods and empires, with the ambition and intrigues of the Babylonian court, the God of Israel remained silent but watchful, patiently waiting for the opportune moment to reveal his power. And then, on a restless night, the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, awoke, gripped by a terror he could not explain. A dream, vivid and disturbing, had crossed his mind like a blade, leaving him shaken and filled with foreboding. A dream that no god seemed capable of interpreting. While Nebuchadnezzar desperately sought answers, an invisible tension began to build within the palace walls. The future of the kingdoms, the rise and fall of empires, was about to be unveiled, and Daniel did not yet know that he would be called upon to decipher the enigmatic dream. a task that would ultimately shake the foundations of the mightiest empire on earth. The palace awoke in a state of palpable tension. Servants scurried about, their movements hurried and nervous. Guards murmured amongst themselves, their faces etched with concern, and doors were opened and closed abruptly, shattering the usual decorum of the royal court. Nebuchadnezzar had not slept, his mind racing with unanswered questions. The dream still burned in his memory like a haunting omen, impossible to ignore. Something colossal, something of immense significance, had been revealed to him and then abruptly snatched away from his memory, leaving him with only the chilling terror of the unknown. Bring them all. Mages, enchanters, wise men. I demand answers. The hall filled up quickly with men of influence and reputation. Proud men dressed in elaborate robes, adorned with symbols of their gods, waited confidently, convinced of their ability to appease the king. The king walked slowly in front of them, his gaze intense and demanding, a silent pressure that weighed heavily on the assembled wise men. I had a dream, and I demand that you tell me what I dreamed and what it means. Silence fell upon the hall like a stone, a heavy and suffocating weight. O king, tell us the dream, then we will give you the interpretation. Nebuchadnezzar's gaze hardened, his eyes flashing with anger and frustration. If they were truly wise, they would know. If they do not tell me the dream, they will die. If they do, they will receive honor and wealth beyond their wildest imaginations. Fear took over the hall, spreading like a disease. Whispers broke out, restless footsteps echoed on the marble floor, and pale faces betrayed the growing panic. One of them dared to speak again, his voice trembling. No man can do this, only the gods. Before the sentence was even finished, the king exploded in a fit of rage. Then they will all die. The news spread quickly through the city, carried on the wind like a death knell. Soldiers, grim-faced and efficient, set out to execute the wise men of Babylon, their orders clear and unwavering. The order made no exceptions. Daniel and his friends, despite their reputation for wisdom and integrity, were included in the sweeping decree. When Arioch, the chief of the guard, a seasoned warrior with a reputation for ruthlessness, arrived at Daniel's place, he found something completely unexpected: calmness. Why such a hurry to kill? The king's order. He lost his patience and trust. Daniel, displaying remarkable composure in the face of imminent death, asked for a favor, a bold request that surprised the hardened warrior. Daniel asked for time, a bold request. But something in his demeanor convinced the commander to take him to the king. Before Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel spoke with respect, but without fear, his voice resonating with unwavering faith. Give me a little time. The answer will come. The king watched him for a long time, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. He had nothing to lose, he reasoned, and perhaps this young man possessed something that the others lacked. If it fails, you will die with the others. That night, Daniel hurried back home, his heart heavy with the weight of the task before him. He gathered his friends together, sharing the urgency of the situation and the gravity of the consequences. The danger now was real and immediate, threatening to consume them all. We need to cry out. If God doesn't speak, we will all die. They knelt down together, united in their faith and their desperate need for divine intervention. There were no long speeches, no elaborate pronouncements, just heartfelt pleading, a silent cry from the depths of their souls. The silence seemed overwhelming, broken only by the quiet sobs of their fear. But while Babylon was asleep, dreaming its dreams of power and conquest, something extraordinary was moving beyond what could be seen, beyond the realm of human understanding. During the night, the answer came, a divine revelation that pierced the darkness and illuminated Daniel's mind. The dream was revealed to him in vivid detail. Every image, every symbol, every hidden meaning laid bare before his eyes. Daniel woke up before dawn with tearful eyes, his heart overflowing with gratitude and awe. Blessed be the name of the Lord. He is the one who changes times and seasons. He is the one who removes kings and establishes kings. Brought back to the palace, Daniel asked for the executions to be suspended. The hall was tense when he entered. The king looked at him suspiciously. "Can you tell me the dream?" "No wise man can, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries." Then Daniel, with unwavering confidence and divine authority, described the vision. The large statue, the head of gold, the chest of silver, the belly of bronze, the legs of iron, the feet mixed with clay. The king turned pale, his face etched with a mixture of fear and disbelief. Each word Daniel spoke resonated with an undeniable truth, confirming the accuracy of his revelation. "You are the head of gold. After you, other kingdoms will rise. But one day, a stone not cut by human hands will destroy them all and establish an eternal kingdom." The hall was still, every breath held in anticipation. The king's pride, his arrogance, his unwavering belief in his own power, was shattered by something greater than himself. Nebuchadnezzar stepped down from the throne, a gesture of humility he had never before displayed, and bowed before Daniel. "Truly your God is the God of gods." Daniel was praised, showered with honors and riches, and his friends were granted positions of authority within the kingdom. But while Babylon celebrated, reveling in the temporary reprieve from divine judgment, something far greater was unfolding on the horizon, a grand cosmic drama that would determine the fate of nations. The dream did not speak only of that time, of the immediate future of Babylon. It spoke of the end, of the ultimate triumph of God's eternal kingdom. And silently, relentlessly, the stage began to be set for an even more severe test, a trial by fire where loyalty would be tested to its absolute limit. Time passed and Babylon, despite the king's momentary humility, started to breathe pride again, its arrogance returning like a familiar cloak. The impact of the dream had been real but not lasting. The lessons learned were quickly forgotten in the intoxicating atmosphere of power and wealth. The king, seeking to solidify his legacy and to defy the prophecy, raised a colossal golden statue, an imposing figure that shone brilliantly under the sun, visible from miles away, a symbol of his own power and his unyielding defiance of the divine will. It was more than just a monumental work of art. It was a deliberate statement, a blatant declaration that human power would not be replaced, that the empire would not fall. The king had decided to turn the prophecy into a challenge, a direct confrontation with the God of Israel. Heralds traveled throughout the provinces, announcing the decree to every corner of the kingdom. At the sound of the trumpet, flute, and all the music, everyone must bow before the king's image. Those who do not bow will be thrown into the blazing furnace. Authorities, governors, and people from all walks of life gathered in the designated field, their faces a mixture of awe, fear, and anticipation. The air was thick with voices, colors, and a palpable sense of tension. When the music echoed across the plain, a human wave swept forward, bowing in unison before the golden idol. But in the middle of the kneeling crowd, 3 figures remained standing, their heads held high, their bodies erect, unwavering in their defiance. Some noticed, whispering amongst themselves, while others pretended not to see, averting their gaze in fear. But the report, as it always does, did not take long to reach the ears of the king. "O king, there are men who do not obey you. They do not bow down before the image." Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were brought before Nebuchadnezzar, their faces calm and resolute. The king looked at them, trying to contain his fury, his eyes blazing with anger. "It is true, then, if you do not bow down, you will die. Which God can deliver you from my hands?" The 3 exchanged a quick glance, a silent communication of shared faith and unwavering commitment. There was no hesitation in their response. "We do not need to defend ourselves. Our God can deliver us, but even if he does not, we will not serve your gods." The king's face changed, contorted with rage and disbelief. The order was immediate, barked out with a voice that brooked no argument. "Heat the furnace 7 times more." Strong soldiers, their faces grim and determined, tied them up and dragged them towards the blazing inferno. The heat was so intense that even the guards, seasoned warriors accustomed to the horrors of war, fell dead as they approached the furnace, their bodies consumed by the overwhelming flames. The bodies of the young men vanished into the fire. The king watched, his face satisfied, confident in his absolute power, until something changed. Didn't we send 3 men into the furnace? Yes, O king. So why do I see 4? And the 4th looks like a son of the gods. The music stopped abruptly. The cheerful melodies cut short. The laughter died, silenced by a sudden and inexplicable fear. The fire that consumed everything, reducing flesh and bone to ashes, did not touch them. The ropes that bound them had fallen apart, but they remained unharmed, walking freely within the flames. Walking among the flames, seemingly untouched by the inferno, the king stood up, filled with a mixture of fear and awe. Come out, servants of the Most High God. They left the furnace, stepping out of the fiery crucible. There was no smell of smoke clinging to their clothes, no burnt hairs on their heads. The silence that followed was complete, broken only by the crackling of the flames. Blessed be their God. There is no one else who can deliver like this. A new decree was announced, proclaiming the greatness of the God of Israel and granting honor to Daniel's companions. But while the people celebrated, marveling at the divine intervention, something still needed to be addressed. The king's heart had been shaken, but not broken. The pride remained alive, hidden beneath layers of reverence and fear. And God, in his infinite patience and unwavering love, prepared a final warning, a dream not to reveal the fate of kingdoms, but to reveal the true state of the king's own heart. The apparent peace returned to cover Babylon, a fragile veneer concealing the underlying tensions and the king's simmering pride. The days were prosperous, filled with abundance and prosperity, and the king walked confidently between the towering columns and the lush hanging gardens, contemplating the greatness of everything he had built, taking credit for the empire's success. The flames of the furnace were now a distant memory, fading into the background, and the fear that had once visited him had given way to admiration for himself, to an inflated sense of his own importance. At that time, Nebuchadnezzar had another dream. Unlike the first one, this one did not disturb him immediately, did not fill him with terror, but left a strange burden on his soul, a nagging unease that he could not shake. He called the wise men again, summoning them to interpret the dream, but no one could explain what he had seen. No one could unravel the mysteries of the vision. Finally, in desperation, Daniel was summoned. The king described the vision with restrained pride, his voice still tinged with arrogance. A gigantic tree in the middle of the earth, tall, strong, visible to everyone. Its fruits fed people, its shade sheltered animals, and birds nested in its branches, a symbol of his own power and the prosperity he had brought to the empire. But suddenly a messenger came down from the sky and ordered, "Cut down the tree, scatter its branches, leave only the stump bound with iron and bronze. Let the heart of the man be changed into the heart of an animal until 7 times pass over him." Daniel remained silent, his face etched with concern. The king noticed his hesitation, sensing that the interpretation was not what he wanted to hear. "Don't hide anything, even if it's against me." Daniel took a deep breath, steeling himself for the difficult task ahead. His voice was steady but filled with sorrow, his heart heavy with the burden of the message he had to deliver. "My lord, hopefully this dream was for your enemies. The tree is you. You have grown. You became powerful. Your authority reached the ends of the earth. But the decree is this: you will be separated from men. You will live like an animal. You will eat grass until you recognize that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of men." The king listened, his face growing increasingly serious, his eyes fixed on Daniel's face. "Is there hope? Yes. If you humble yourself, if you practice justice, if you recognize that power does not come from you." The warning was given. The grace period started, but the months passed and nothing changed. The king, blinded by his pride and arrogance, refused to heed the divine warning. One day, walking on the palace terrace, surveying his domain, the king looked at the city below, his chest swelling with pride. The sun reflected on the gold, the walls, the temples, creating a dazzling spectacle of wealth and power. Isn't this the great Babylon that I built with my power for the glory of my majesty? The sentence had barely finished when the sky responded, a booming voice that seemed to shake the very foundations of the city. The kingdom has been taken from you, echoed an unseen voice. At that moment, the king's mind snapped. The power that ruled nations couldn't sustain his own ego. He was removed from his throne, lost his mind, and lived among the animals, his humanity stripped away. His hair grew like feathers, his nails like claws, transforming him into a wild and unkempt creature. The king had become a shadow of what he once was, a living testament to the consequences of unchecked pride. Days turned into seasons, blending into a long and agonizing period of humiliation and repentance. Pride dissolved into the ground, returning to the dust from which it came, until at the appointed time, something changed. Nebuchadnezzar looked up to the sky, his eyes filled with a newfound understanding and humility. There were no speeches, no grand pronouncements, just a simple and profound acknowledgement of the divine power that governed the universe. Now I know he lives forever. His rule never ends. Reason returned, flooding his mind with clarity and understanding. The throne was restored to him, but the man who sat upon it was no longer the same. He had been humbled, broken, and ultimately transformed by his experience. Before the assembled court, the king spoke with a different voice, devoid of arrogance, his words filled with reverence and humility. I exalt and glorify the King of the heavens. All his ways are just. He can humble those who walk in pride. Babylon stood, its physical structures still imposing, but something had been broken, a subtle shift in the balance of power. The pride of the greatest king on earth was humbled by the invisible hand that governs all, a powerful reminder that even the most powerful empires are ultimately subject to the will of the divine. And as one reign slowly came to an end, another, marked by disdain and desecration, approached without realizing its final night was about to arrive. The city was celebrating, reveling in a false sense of security. The walls remained intact, the gates were closed, and the enemy army seemed too far away to pose any immediate threat to the night's festivities. Inside the palace, the sound of clinking glasses mixed with loud laughter and blaring music, creating a cacophony of drunken revelry. Belshazzar, now king, a man known for his arrogance and his disregard for the divine, had ordered a grand banquet, a lavish display of wealth and power. 1,000 nobles were gathered, intoxicated not just by wine, but by a feeling of invulnerability, a belief that their empire was invincible. Nothing can reach us. Babylon is eternal. Belshazzar smiled, taken by his own audacity. His eyes wandered around the room, taking in the extravagant scene, until a provocative and blasphemous idea occurred to him. Bring the gold and silver utensils, those that my father took from the Jerusalem temple. There was a brief silence, a moment of stunned disbelief, quickly broken by murmurs of excitement and anticipation. The sacred objects, symbols of faith and devotion, were brought into the hall and distributed amongst the guests, their sacredness disregarded. The wine was served in them, defiling the holy vessels. The sacred was reduced to an object of mockery, a cheap thrill for a drunken king and his sycophantic courtiers. Let us drink to the gods of gold, silver, bronze, and stone. That's when the music stopped suddenly, the boisterous melodies cut short by an eerie silence. A hand emerged, ethereal and luminous, standing out against the illuminated wall. There was no body, only fingers that wrote slowly and deliberately with terrifying precision, etching a message in an unknown language. The sound of nails scraping on the stone echoed in the hall, amplifying the fear and confusion. The laughter died, replaced by gasps of horror and whispered prayers. Belshazzar's face turned pale, his skin clammy with sweat, and his knees began to tremble uncontrollably. Who can explain this? Wise people were urgently summoned, their faces etched with fear and confusion. None understood the meaning of the writing, none dared to pretend they understood, for the consequences of failure were too dire to contemplate. Panic spread through the hall, consuming everyone in its wake. Then the Queen Mother, wise and experienced, entered the hall with surprising confidence, her presence a calming influence amidst the chaos. "O king, there is a man in your kingdom. In him is the spirit of the gods. In the days of your father, he revealed mysteries that no one else could." Daniel was called, now an elderly man, his face lined with wisdom and experience. He entered without hurry, his steps measured and deliberate. His eyes scanned the hall, taking in the desecrated utensils, the drunken faces, and the overall atmosphere of sacrilege and debauchery. There was no reverence in his gaze, only a quiet sorrow and a profound understanding of the events unfolding. "I heard that you can interpret. If you do it, you will be honored." Daniel answered without bowing, his voice clear and unwavering, unmoved by the king's offer of wealth and power. "Keep your talents, but I will read the writing. You knew what happened to your predecessor. You knew how the Almighty humbled him, yet you exalted yourself against him." The silence was complete, the only sound the faint crackling of the torches that illuminated the hall. "You used the sacred vessels to mock, and you did not glorify the God who supports your life. The writing is this: mean tekel parsin, meaning, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. You have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Your kingdom will be divided and given to others." The sentence was immediate and irrevocable. Honors were given for formality, to uphold appearances, but the night was already sealed, the king's fate already determined. As the banquet was still echoing through the palace, the city gates were opened by unseen paths, betrayed from within by those who sought power or revenge. The enemy entered without resistance, slipping through the city like shadows. The king was killed that same night, his reign brought to a sudden and bloody end. Babylon fell without battle, without glory, without any further warning, its demise swift and decisive. The next day, a new government was established, the reins of power passing into new hands. Once again, Daniel remained silent, loyal to his God and to the principles of justice and integrity. Amidst the changing thrones and the shifting political landscape, he continued to serve a kingdom that could not be overtaken, an eternal kingdom that transcended earthly power. But his loyalty would be tested one last time, a final trial that would push him to the very brink. And this time, not before drunken kings, but before hungry lions. The new government was established quickly. Darius took the throne amidst agreements and vigilance, reorganizing provinces and appointing administrators. Daniel, now elderly, was placed above the others, his wisdom and experience highly valued by the new ruler. His integrity was known, his mind remained clear, and his loyalty was never tarnished, earning him the respect and admiration of all who knew him. This aroused envy in the hearts of some, those who resented his position and sought to undermine his influence. Men gathered in secret, watching his steps, looking for faults that didn't exist, desperate to find some way to bring him down. "We won't catch him in corruption. He is blameless. So let's use his God." A cunning plan began to take shape, a sinister plot to exploit Daniel's unwavering faith. A decree was drafted with an appearance of honoring the king, its true purpose hidden beneath a veneer of flattery and false devotion. "For 30 days, nobody will make a petition to any god or any man except to you. Whoever disobeys will be thrown into the lion's den." The king, flattered by the show of loyalty and blinded by his own vanity, signed the decree without suspecting the trap that had been laid. The news spread quickly through the city, carried on the whispers of the envious and the fearful. Daniel heard about the decree, understanding immediately the danger it posed. He didn't argue, he didn't object, nor did he try to compromise his faith. At dusk, he went up to the room, opened the windows facing Jerusalem, and knelt down as he did every day, offering his prayers to the God of Israel. "Lord, in your hands I place my path." His actions were seen, reported, and meticulously documented by those who sought his downfall. Darius realized the trap too late, his heart sinking with the realization of his own foolishness. He tried to revoke the decree, but the law of the Medes and Persians was irrevocable, etched in stone and unchangeable. The king summoned Daniel, his face filled with regret and despair. "Can your God save you? He is loyal." Daniel was thrown into the pit, a dark and terrifying place filled with hungry lions. A stone was placed over the entrance, sealing him in, and the king sealed it with his own ring, a symbol of his powerlessness to intervene. That night was long and agonizing for Darius. He did not eat, he did not sleep, his mind consumed with worry for the fate of the man he had come to respect. At dawn, he ran to the grave, his heart pounding with a mixture of hope and dread. "Daniel, was your God able to save you?" From the depths of darkness, a voice replied, firm and clear, filled with unwavering faith. "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. Nothing happened to me." The king ordered his immediate removal from the pit, his face radiant with joy and relief. Daniel came out unscathed, untouched by the hungry beasts. No mark, no injury, only the unwavering glow of faith in his eyes. The accusers were thrown into the pit and did not touch the ground before being consumed, their treachery bringing about their own destruction. Darius issued a new decree, not out of fear, but out of genuine recognition of the power and majesty of the God of Israel. "Throughout my kingdom, tremble before the God of Daniel. He lives, and his kingdom will not be destroyed." The years went by, kings came and went, their reigns marked by ambition, conquest, and ultimately, decay. Daniel stayed, his wisdom and integrity continuing to guide him. But now, no longer in high positions of power, he spent long nights in prayer, seeking divine guidance and understanding. It was then that the visions came, vivid and terrifying glimpses into the future. Beasts rising from the sea, kingdoms rising and falling, horns, wars, oppression. A son of man coming on the clouds, receiving eternal dominion. The weight of these visions was heavy, a burden that weighed heavily on his soul. Until when? The response wasn't immediate. There was silence, a pregnant pause filled with anticipation. There was waiting, a test of patience and endurance. Then came the voice, clear and unwavering, revealing the divine plan. "Seal these words. Many will run back and forth, and knowledge will increase." Daniel cried, not out of fear, but because of what he saw. The future was set, the course of history predetermined. The suffering would come, a period of tribulation and testing. But the end was also sealed, the ultimate triumph of God's eternal kingdom. "You will rest," said the voice, "and you will rise to your inheritance at the end of days." Daniel remained silent, accepting his fate with unwavering faith and quiet resignation. The world would keep spinning. Empires would still arise, conquer, and crumble, their reigns fleeting and ultimately insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But he knew that the eternal kingdom would not be shaken, that its foundation was solid and unyielding. And when the kingdoms of men finally ended, when earthly power faded into insignificance, the God who governs history would be fully revealed, his glory and his justice shining forth for all to see.